George Sambrano. I'm a music teacher. I was a past adjudicator of National Panorama, a past adjudicator of National Calypso competitions, and the education officer of TUCO. That's the body that runs Calypso in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
I was born into a mass family. So I have been playing mass since age of 7. And my brother actually brought a section with Harold Saldana. You must have heard that name.
Yes.
Right? And so mass is nothing new to me. From the age of 7, I have not missed a carnival.
Okay.
I'm also a MPhil student in culture. And my thesis is mainly on something called Parang Soca, Soca and Calypso. But I'm also a researcher. So I also do research at the side and do short lectures on Soca and other areas. I guess I just enjoy doing research.
Okay. So what does carnival mean to you, as coming from the music side of things, but what did it mean to you?
Okay. Of course, as you get older, you don't get as involved in carnival as before. But if I can answer with a story, some years ago, Brian Lara was in Australia, I think it was, or England, playing a test series. And he opted out in the middle of the series to return to Trinidad just for carnival. And I said that so that you can get an idea what carnival means to us, right? I mean, if Lara is willing to leave a test cricket game to come back for carnival, you know, it tells you what carnival means to us. It's our heart, it's our soul, but it's also our history, you know. And if you go back to the origins of the word carnival, which comes from the word carnivalist, so we're going all the way back to Greece and those areas. It really was the whole idea of turning things upside down. So a king can become a pauper for a day, and a pauper can become a king for the day. And as a result, for carnival, you can be anything you want to be on that day. So for example, this year I played sailor, and I was a sailor. Nobody can tell me anything different. Everybody I met in the band, whether they were minister, a government minister, whoever, we were all sailors in the band. You know, we didn't talk politics, we didn't talk anything. We were all sailors enjoying ourselves in a band. And Carnival gave us that one day away from reality, you know, which Trinidad and Tobago needs a lot today, because you may be aware we have a very high crime rate, and we need that day or two to jump. It also has a nice physical aspect where you, as we say, you jump your blues away, right? Yes, you're tired by the end of the day, but you have jumped your blues away. You see me how some people run, get rid of the blues, some dance, some go in the gym, right? Carnival, we jump our blues away. You know, so that's two aspects of the physical day. But it's also a nice way to pass on our culture and our history to the younger generation who have met things and they don't know how it came, they don't know the sacrifices made, you know, today, you know. So for example, today we play pan and helter skelter, but we don't even know that people died trying to protect the pan, you know, and the torment people went through for pan. So it's a good opportunity for me, why? Because I teach it in my class. You know, I teach from Form 1, I teach history of carnival, of calypso, of steel pan from early. Yeah. I've lost your audio.
It's okay. I put myself on mute while you're talking, so sorry, apologies for that.
Yeah.
So, how much do you think? Because you're saying you started playing Massa from 7. So, how has it changed over the years? What was it like when you were 7 and going out there and?
Oh, lovely. Okay, well, not only us. I think the whole world has artistic world, sorry, has suffered the blows of popular culture because popular culture is commercial culture, and commercialization has nothing to do with art most times. It has to do with money, which means you can present anything once it's financially viable, good, bad, or indifferent. You can present it, and like other countries and other areas, we are suffering that the appealing effects of popular culture coming into our carnival. So when I was much younger, carnival was art. You portrayed something, you portrayed somebody. Your band name was probably the glory that was Greece, and you will see all the history of Greece, or something like I say China, and you see all the things in China and Buddha. Today, it has become a social issue. So there's little effort put into the costumes, as we say now, beads and feathers, beads and bikinis. In fact, the costumes are made in China, right? And shipped to Trinidad cheaply. And so what they do, they more offer a package with a costume. It is sold as a it's advertised as a costume, but what it really is telling you is not so much a costume, but an opportunity to socialize with certain people. So you play in a certain band that the prime minister would be in, or Brian Lara would be in, and you want to be in that band. And if you're a girl and you can get a wine on Brian Lara, you can tell all your friends after, and you take all the pictures, and then you have security. No one can come in the band. There are a lot of drinks and a lot of free eats, and there's toilets there. It's a package, a social package, but very little is put into the art. You can count the bands that who try to play art, but mainly it is more money making affair and a more socializing affair.
Could you tell me a little bit, because I know we have Duvet and that comes before the carnival, but now it's something that's quite new to me, is the jab jab.
Jab jab. Really, or the real pronunciation is diab diab. But as like of course in any language, it would get I forget the word, but let's use the word skew as time go by. So in Trinidad we say jab jab, but it really is diab diab, which means devil devil, right? Because well, I guess you know the story coming out of slavery, right? The even on the plantations there was some sense of carnival, but it came on the road, of course, by 1834, 1838, it came on the road, and but there was this imitation of slavery still. So diab is like, look, we are like portraying the devils who enslaved us. So for example, there's what we call pronounced jambalasi, which is really, when converted in French, is really molasses devil. And molasses, we all know, comes from sugar cane, right? That is like the scum of the sugar cane when it's being boiled. And what happened was that anytime the canes were burned, sometimes sabotaged, they would bring all these slaves from their beds and force them to cut canes that they never cut before because they don't want the canes to burn. And it was a very strenuous, frustrating situation. And some ex-slaves decided to portray this whole thing about this molasses and this sugarcane burning, this devilish thing. And as a result, it's almost like trying to bring back the hurt but not in a hurtful way, right? So, and I mean, Dame Lorraine, right, which is really an imitation of the master's wife with her big behind, right, right. So you're heckling the master's wife. So a lot of the characters were really referring immediately to slavery. Some were before slavery. Some actually came out of Africa, like the the Moko Jumbi. Moko Jumbi was not created in Trinidad. It came out of Africa, and it was retained, altered, of course, and came into carnival. We have to bear in mind, I'll tell you something that most people may not tell you. Most people don't know. Trinidad Carnival is really two carnivals in one. There's African Carnival, which is Juve, and there's European Carnival, which is Tuesday. That's why they're so completely different. Many people are not aware of that, including people in Trinidad for centuries not aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that myself. So.
Yeah, but if you look close, they're so different. They can never be the same carnival.
Mm.
Even before our carnival, the Europeans had their carnival too. The French had a carnival because Trinidad was colonized by the French, right? The British came long after and tried to put their stamp and make us change our language. But we were really colonized by French planters who came from Haiti after the revolution, and they brought their slaves here. So that we speak a French patois, right? A merger of African language and French, compared to Jamaica, who might speak a more Irish patois. So we all call it patois, the different types of patois, and we speak a more French patois. And but the French themselves had their carnivals on the estate in their halls. So the French were accustomed to carnival, and I mean, we know about Bastille Day, and we know all about the French, and they still have their carnivals going on, right? In fact, sometimes we travel to France for their carnival day. And the French brought their own carnival costumes too, like the Pierrot Grenade. Well, no, sorry, the Pierrot. The French brought the Pierrot. That's a guy he's like a knowledgeable teacher, but he's all in beautiful white, right? Of course, in Grenada, which is next to Trinidad, they couldn't afford to put a guy in white. So they took old bedspread and chuck and created the Pierrot Grenade. So Pierrot Grenade meaning the Grenadian Pierrot. And he now spread back to Trinidad. So Trinidad has the Pierrot Grenade. That's the locals. But the French aristocrats had their just Pierrot, who was the same guy, but in pure white. And they had their jesters. And so they had their own costume. And here the Africans came on Monday, and by 1856 around there, they moved the carnival from what we call Emancipation Day, which is the 1st of April, into Juve. No one, I have researched, and there's no one who can tell us what year they took carnival from Cambule. So it wasn't called carnival then, it was called Cambule, and put it inside Juve.
So Emancipation Day is the 1st of August, not
1st of August.
Right, okay, just so I was confused there.
Right.
Okay, okay, yeah, no, I'm with you.
Right. So after emancipation, there was Cambule from 1939 around there, 38, 39. But somewhere around the 50s, and I cannot give you an exact date because no one, I have found anyone who has stated yet exactly what year they took Cambule and moved it as part of Juve. it was not part of Juve. It's only in the 1990s, recently in Trinidad, that we start back celebrating Cambule on Emancipation Day after 100 and something years, right? But Cambule originally was celebrated on the 1st of August, but was taken out and put into Juve. So we ended up with two carnivals. The Cambule African Carnival, which is Juve morning, and European Carnival, which is Carnival Tuesday.
Makes sense. Okay, so where does the jab jab come into it? That's with Juve, because I see a lot of African culture within Juve, and like you're saying, so it makes sense when you're saying that. It makes total sense.
Yeah, well, Juve was in Cambule. Yeah? Everything that was in Cambule was taken out and put. They just shipped the day. They shipped the day from Cambule Day, 1st of August, to Carnival Day, Carnival Monday. And I think the problem started when some of the middle class started to get involved in the Juve. And the authorities started to have a problem because it was no longer this small lower class, but it was starting to become a larger group, and more people started to get involved. Even the Jose drummers who are East Indians started to get involved. And the minute the authorities started to see people merging and becoming an entity politically, that is not a healthy thing. Because now he started to fear the same thing that happened in Haiti, started to fear it happens here in Trinidad also, right? Because too many people getting involved in that Monday carnival, and that would lead into the Cambule riot. The Cambule riot had little to do with drums. It really had to do with the expansion of different social groups joining into the Cambule. That put a lot of fear into the authorities. And as a result, they passed, if my memory is wrong, you can double check it, but I think it was the Peace Preservation Act, you can double check it, around 1956 to stop Cambule. But it never stopped. In typical Trinidad, we are very lawless people. I mean, we are made up of lawless groups from Africa and India, and the French are lawless too. So put three lawless set of people together, you can understand. We don't follow laws. So it will take about 50, 60, 70, but 26 years before they were swooped down on Cambule. But that law was there over 25 years. And they didn't care. They didn't care how much law was passed. They continued the Cambule. But it was only when 1880 reached, the authorities started to speak about, no. Next year, we're going to clamp down on this Cambule thing. I hope I am on to what you wanted to know.
You've been brilliant. You've been absolutely brilliant, because you've told me more than I know. Because there's certain elements and things that I understand and what I know, and what I kept on asking people about Duvet and what's the difference, why Duvet happens, and you know, those kind of things, and nobody could actually tell me. You're the first person that gave me that insight into it. But what's interesting for me is that Duvet, on looking at it, seems to be the more African side of things, which is what you've said. Mm-hmm. But the dates, why? Because looking at the dates, I would have expected the African side of it to have started on the Emancipation Day, rather than it being the Canberra, because the Canberra, it kind of fits into that thing after Lent and the Catholics and kind of thing. So I would have thought they would have been different date, different swap over.
Okay. Well, it started on Emancipation Day originally, but we have to remember that one of the attempts to control the slaves were to um, make them into good Catholics, right? That is one way of controlling. So that a lot of the ex-slaves were okay. Let me explain something in Trinidad. We have people in Trinidad who are Catholics in the morning and Baptists in the evening. Some are Hindus in the morning and Muslim in the afternoon, right? I'm losing you. I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, I see this when I'm out there.
Right. So we have found a way to have dual and even triple religious beliefs, right? And what had happened is that a lot of the slaves became Catholics but still remain Orishas. In fact, what they did, they took some of the Catholic Godhead and brought it into the Orisha. So in Orisha, you will still hear about Jesus in Orisha, right? So it's a kind of merge. And then we had a religion which is right on the center called spiritual Baptist, which use a Bible, but you still see a lot of Orisha inside of it. So people creating these mergers. So remember, Carnival comes before Lent. So there's nothing strange to take Cambule and bring it into the fold of the Catholic concept. Plus, it's a way of demanding that you no longer be an outcast, that you want to be part of the celebrations like anyone else. So look, why can't I join into I'm folks too? I am free, I'm human. Why can't I get at least Juve morning, right? Of course, another time you'll discover that Carnival was even on Sunday and all that too, before the church moved it to Monday and all that sort of thing. But
wasn't it 3 days at one point?
it was 3 days at one point, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But as I said, the church said they were being disturbed, so they pushed it to Monday and Tuesday. But the free slaves felt they are people too. And you have to also remember that the middle class, quote unquote, mulattoes were also involved, and they would have been Catholics all their life. So they don't see why they cannot give freedom to the flesh like anyone else, and then they could repent on Ash Wednesday. You know? So yeah, if the French could give freedom and do what they want, why we can't do it? Don't worry, we could always repent Ash Wednesday. So there are a lot of influence that would have brought it in to Carnival Monday.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to thank you so much for your information today and to coming to sit down with me today, because you've been a wealth of knowledge and you've been absolutely amazing. So I really appreciate you taking the time out today.
Okay, all right. So basically, I am a PhD candidate in cultural studies. My emphasis is on globalization, particularly how the Trinidad Carnival travels across the world. For my MA, I did how Carnival travels to Africa. Now, people would think I'm trying to look at the connection between the history of Carnival in Africa and Trinidad. But basically what I found is that there are places in Nigeria, for example, that are following our style of Carnival. So I explored that a little bit. It was unfortunate during the time when I was doing my research, it was the time of Ebola, Boko Haram. So I did not get to go, but I was able to still do third-person stories, narratives about what took transpire there. And that inspired me to my PhD, because there's another stop on the globalization road, for want of a better term, where I'm seeing there's movement in Japan. So that is where my research is taking me now. But
Okay.
from since I was small, I have always loved carnival. As you can see from my T-shirt, I am carnival because I've been playing mass since I was small. You know,
Oh.
so it's a great synergy between academic research as well as what I know as a devout disciple of the mass.
And you mentioned a little bit that you started looking at the link between Africa and Trinidad. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Nigeria.
Could you repeat that again? My phone was just speaking to me.
Sorry, you mentioned that you started off looking at the links between Africa and the Caribbean, the starting points. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so what we could do is look at what we know as the traditions of African traditions in our Trinidad Carnival. For example, you see it now, even though that people say that the traditions are dying, we have the Jab Jab, we have the Dame Lorraine, all the traditional carnival characters came from that African tradition. Of course, we know the story of how carnival got here. The enslaved mimicked the pantocracy because they were having their grand festivals and they decided to make fun of them. And that is how some of those characters came about. But you see things like the Moko Jumbies, and if you look at it from Africa, you see that, you know, there is that correlation. The masking that we do from time to time, even though most times is makeup, but the masking is part of the African tradition. So you see those are the connections between what has happened in Trinidad and Africa. But the difference is now is that they're looking at our contemporary style of carnival, and they want to, you know, to formulate their kind of carnival similar to ours. So that's basically what I found out.
Okay.
So it's not to say that carnival is it's going home. Trinidad Carnival is home, and then carnival in Africa has its own place.
Yes, yes. Ooh, we got a bit of a reverb there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, you know, it's interesting. I mean, you can see the masks when you're looking at the connections with Africa.
Yes,
And
yes.
the other thing that kind of highlights is the drumming and the music, that the steel pans coming from the starting with the drums. Do you know anything about that? Can you explain any of?
Well, I can know that with the tambu bamboo is the connector, right?
Yes.
So that is what came. That was part of the tradition that we got evolved, right? And from the tambu bamboo came the steel drum, and that is how the progression began. So it came from the drums, from the tambu bamboo to the steel band, and that is where the lineage, for want of a better term, is. You know, I also know that even in based on my research from before, that in Africa they were intrigued by it because they look at it as drums, because it is a drum, it's an oil drum, and they were intrigued at how we were able to get the music out of it. So, you know, there is that interest as well in how we present ourselves across on the other side.
So, do you feel, because you say you've been going to Carnival and playing mass for many, many years, so
Yeah.
how do you feel about the changes over time? Do you think Trinidad Carnival has changed a lot over the years? Is it kind of picking up a lot of the customs from Brazil? What are the differences? I think I've asked you a few questions in one there, sorry.
Yeah, I understand, because I'm trying to formulate the answer. When you say that if Carnival has changed and we have picked up on the Brazilian, I could start from there. The reality is culture changes all the time. Carnival will not be, you know, immune to all the trends that are happening around the world. There will be always some kind of formation or adaptation of some part of the culture. Right? We have done it from long before with George Bailey and, you know, the early designers, when they brought in the fantasy of the Roman emperors, of the African juju warriors. So, you know, you still had that sense of fantasy, and that is how we get inspired to create our costumes. So if it is that we have a Brazilian style mask, is because it's a supply and demand, if you're looking at it from a commercial perspective. And then there's the other side where there are people who prefer the traditions of wearing whole clothing, right? You know, long capes, you know, that billow in the wind, you know, or wear backpacks that, you know, indicate the character what they're playing. So it's a mixture of everything. Saying that carnival has changed, it will change. But I think, I mean, we will have our traditions still from what we know as, like, for example, the sailor mass. You know, we still have the Moko Jumbies, we still have the Blue Devils, you know, we still have the jabs. I'm not talking about the jabs with the biscuit tin, I'm talking about the ones with the whips. You know, I'm not sure if you know those ones.
Yeah, yeah.
They look very pretty, they're masked and they have these menacing whips. We still have these characters here. So it's not to say that it is dying, it is just that there is a transgression. And because they still exist, it means that, you know, the old traditions are still there.
So with the, sorry, I'm trying to kind of develop the question.
That's okay.
Speaking to people from different islands, there seems to be a real importance to get back to some of those traditional elements of carnival. Is that the same in Trinidad, or do you feel that Trinidad has never lost that?
It depends on perspective. Because there are people who say that carnival is dying because you don't see the traditional characters as often as before. But if you go into the communities, for example, in Chaguanas or in San Fernando, you see that in those pockets that those carnivals still exist. So I think we have to move away from the Port of Spain centric concept of what carnival is, because that is where we say is the mecca of carnival, right? Because that is where everybody congregates to be in procession, to put on a costume and perform their mass. But in the smaller pockets, there are the traditional masses there. Oh my bad. Traditional mass there, right? That, you know, that sometimes you just have to go and find it. I think now it's a question of being able to give them sufficient leverage that people will be curious enough to gravitate towards them, you know, as opposed to say that Port of Spain is the end all and be all of the mass. When there are these presentations that can be seen, you know, in other parts of Trinidad and Tobago.
So that's a thing, because there are different carnivals that happen around the year in Trinidad as well. I know I've been to one in Point Fortin. Point Fortin. And that was, I think that was around, was it July, August time? I can't remember.
That's in May. Point Fortin is in May.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't hear that.
Point Fortin mass around Point Fortin festival is around in May. It's in May.
May, right? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So why are the different timings?
Well, I guess carnival is always in our blood, and we always have to find a way to celebrate who we are. I mean, Point Fortin is not Point Fortin mass without having Juve, for example, because Juve is significantly daybreak, and it's a celebration of rebellion and, you know, emancipation, for want of a better term. So if there is Point Fortin creates its identity by having that Juve that everybody come and meet and celebrate there. I mean, that's all part of it too. It doesn't necessarily mean that carnival has to stay on carnival Monday and Tuesday, the Monday and Tuesday before Ash Wednesday per se, right? That is the major celebration. But if there are pockets of carnival during the year, that's fine. Because I mean, while we're on the topic of Juve, I am sure that, you know, realize that now Juve has become a part of a commercial package, that Juve is performed any time of the year. So you can have a party-like atmosphere where you put on your t-shirt and then you spray down and paint afterwards, and that is called Juve. So it becomes part of us. It doesn't matter what time of the year, but, you know, when there's mass, there is mass.
That's what. Could you explain Juve for the audience? Because one of the things in the UK that the Juve sales is just something that's just coming in. And probably, to my knowledge, it's only London. I think maybe Leeds do it as well. London and Leeds that do it.
I think Leeds as well.
But the smaller pots around the country don't have it, so it's not something that many people are aware of. Could you give us a bit of an explanation on what it is and why?
Okay, all right. So Juve that basically was the beginning of the mass. What happened at daybreak, because Juve means in French is daybreak, Juve. And when you break it down into the patois, it's Juve, right? So that is called daybreak. So in the traditions of Carnival of Yo, it was, I mean, what Tony Hall will call a process, a rebirth, because when you put on your mask, right, you become another person, or you put on your mask to become yourself, right? But it's because you're all in mud and in masks. And let me take that back. Juve was a way by which they used to imitate the plantocracy, meaning the plantation owners, right? That was when the enslaved or the African workers used to make fun of them. So when they used to have on them their the mud, and when they used to have on the devil mask, it was basically to mock their owners, right? And then it progressed into something that was a ritual. It became a ritual of the carnival. In that it was a part of the process of, like I said, what Tony Hall calls liberation and emancipation of the self. So if in order for you to, it's because carnival is also a spiritual element, so you have to have that liberation of freedom, and that is what it is. I think in the process of how carnival has transformed over the years, I think the whole essence of what Juve is may have been lost because, like I said, mentioned earlier, because of the commercialization of it, because for a lot of people, it means celebration, of course, but they celebrate in a different way. So for people in Leicester who don't know, that is how the Juve started. And now that it is now part of our ritual, carnival ritual, it is also part of the carnival tradition that we must perform this task before we go on the streets and look pretty. Before the pretty mass, we had to get, dirty and grimy and, celebrating the music.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's very early out there for you.
Yeah, if you talk on a Saturday, I'm usually
appreciate you coming and getting all ready at first thing in the morning because it's before. Oh, it's just gone 8 over there now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is now. It is now 8:15 actually.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. So we're going to carry on the day now. I'm going to pass over to Vanessa, but before we go, we're going to wave our flags.
Yay! My God, flag!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye.